Namaste and welcome to Guru Samvad. My name is Guru and I moved to Canada in the year 2019. Since the time I moved all the way up to now, a lot of people have left Canada. And in this video, we'll discuss the top 5 reasons why people are leaving Canada. So sit back, relax, have a cup of tea, and let's get on with it. Point number one, cost of living. Your friends, your neighbors, relatives, parents, everyone is concerned about the cost of living. You see, I can just blabber on about cost of living, but instead, let me bring up this chart, the net effect of wage growth and inflation. So I've tracked 5 years of data. In 2020, the wage growth exceeded the inflation by 3.48%. 2020 is the year when COVID was in full fledged. And you might feel that the wage growth was exceedingly high that year. That's why you see such a rosy picture. But that's not the case. The reason why people were able to save more in 2020 is because the entire country of Canada, apart from essential services, were shut down. And because of this, there was absolutely no demand for goods and services. And that explains why the wage growth is far more than inflation, because inflation probably went close to zero in 2020. When we move on to 2021, the value of money that people had went down by 0.88%. In 2022, you could see the true after effects of COVID, where the value of money that people saved went down by 3.7%. In 2023, similar picture, the value of money decreased by 0.89%. And in 2024, looks like the value of money will slightly increase because the inflation hasn't been too high. Now, if you believe in all of the government's Harry Potter stories published in the newspaper and their data, clearly you must be really high. Let me explain. So, the chart that you see in the screen right now is something that I personally experienced. I'm a South Indian and I buy a lot of rice. No rice, no life. When I moved to Canada, I could buy the exact same brand of rice for $24. The price of the same exact quantity of rice and the same brand in 2024 when I purchased recently was $36. That is a 50% increase in the course of 5 years. I know what you might be thinking. You subtract the 36 by 24, which is the price increase, and then you can say that $12 is probably divided by 5, $2 each for every year, and it's all okay. And just $2 increase, it's fine. But that's not what really happened. In 2022, the price shot up like crazy. It went up to $30. And in 2023, it went up to 34 or 35. And this is the time when India also banned the export of Sona Masuri rice. And that also probably added to the inflated prices that you see in 2024. So the price rise did not happen gradually over a period of time. It is not evenly distributed. It happened at one go. That was just rice, and that's particularly applicable to me. Let's take the staple food of Canada, which is bread. So if we go to 2020, it is very reasonable. The price of bread in the beginning or the end of January was 2.87 for 675 grams, and it went down to 2.82, which is a very nominal rate of decrease, about 2%. In 2021, the year started with a slight decrease, which was like 2.79 compared to the 2.82 last year, and it ended with a 7% increase to 2.98. Still okay, I guess. By Canadian standard, it is very high because this is a staple food for Canada. Everybody buys bread. In 2022, though, year started with 3.28 and ended with 3.7, which is a 20% increase. 2023 starts with 3.65, ends with 3.46, just a 5% decrease in total. But what is crucially important is the price in January rose up to 27%. But if you compare between December, it went up by 23%. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up these individual items, if you look at inflation, the government published data of inflation, which says what probably 7% inflation, 3%, 2%, whatever, they get that number by tracking approximately 400 or 500 different commodities weighted in different ways. No individual I know personally buys 400 commodities. You need to track your own inflation to understand what's going on with your costs. My own personal inflation in these years have easily exceeded 12%. And in 2022, it was approximately 20%. Looking at this sort of a mismatch between wage growth and inflation, people decided to leave this country. Point number two, winter. Okay, when it comes to winter, I just have this small chart here showing average temperatures of six different provinces and specific cities from there. Now, it's an average, right? What it's doing is it's taking the maximum and minimum and then dividing by two. It's probably a representative number for what you will face in that month and in that province. But when it comes to winter, cold is only one part of it. What is equally important is the lack of sunshine. If you're like me, who lived in India, a tropical country, and we never had a shortage of sunshine at any season. When you move to this country, you can feel the shortage of sunlight and vitamin D exactly when it hits the winter season. During winters, what happens is you have less amount of sunshine because the sun rises probably somewhere at around 6 and sun sets probably at 4, but you will feel the effect of sunset probably even earlier, maybe 3:30, 3:15 too, at the peak of winter. Sunlight is not just a source of vitamin D. It affects our mental health, our sleep cycle, even hormone growth and development. If you think about an average office going lifestyle in Canada, someone wakes up probably at around 5:36 in the morning when it's dark, leave to the office at around 7 a.m. Even at that point, it's still dark. Once you finish your work, you're coming back home and it's probably after 3:30. So looking at this darkness continuously and consistently upsets your mood. It makes you feel very low. And here is the important thing about winter. We just individually look at this, right? Like let's say we spoke about cost of living as one item, winter and the effects of it as one item. All of this can hit together, or you can have many other problems, probably lack of jobs or your personal issue or financial issue, networking issues, all of this put together, and then you add on the effect of winter. A lot of people say having a vitamin D supplement just makes it better, but I feel it's still not enough because the effect of sunlight is way more than vitamin D. Just having a look at sunrise, sunset, or just the light, it has a very positive effect on your mind. And losing out on that, I feel, is a big deal. And just to give you an example too, here is a 10-day forecast in a place called Port Coquitlam where I live, and this is located in British Columbia. From now all the way up to 5th of January, there is no sunlight. One day without sunshine, it's okay. 2 days, 3 days, still okay. But weeks together without sunshine, that has a different effect. So you have to be mindful that you're moving to a place where at least 3 or 4 months will be very gloomy in terms of climate. Point number three, probably something that everyone's excited about. This is about the jobs or lack thereof. As per government records, the latest unemployment rate is approximately 6%. What is important though is not unemployment rate, is underemployment rate. Underemployment is whether what you have studied and what skills you have already acquired matches with the job that you do. I don't know if you have heard this or not. Just look it up online. You'll find out. There are doctors in this country who are driving taxis, engineers who are delivering Uber Eats and doing DoorDash and whatnot. There are highly qualified postgraduates that are doing entry level and survival jobs like farming, working in a call center, working as a cashier in grocery stores. This is a country that badly needs probably IT, healthcare, skill based trade jobs like plumbing, carpentry, and all of those. This country does not need finance professionals, HRs, and professions of that nature. In fact, the government itself publishes data on what are the important skills that are required for this country in the next few years. What is mind blowing is even among the most like critical roles like healthcare and IT, people still cannot find jobs because either it needs Canadian certification, which requires whole bunch of investment once you land here, or it's just that they feel you don't have Canadian experience and that's why you don't qualify for a job. It's a real nightmare. Here is something that I've noticed in the work culture. I'm not talking about all firms here. The ones that are well established, probably have multinational presence, don't have this. But the local companies here, if they hire you for a certain role, they plan upon keeping you on that role for your lifetime. There is no concept of being competitive, having a growth mindset, wanting to upskill yourself and have a career plan in place. There is no such thing. A lot of people that I've met who have left, they moved to this country, they completely changed their profession to something else, and then they realize there is no career path. You know what, probably I should have stayed back in my country of origin. And then eventually, probably after 3 or 4 years, they decide to move back. Point number 4: crazy government policies. I'll just give you a couple of examples, and there are a lot more to discuss just beyond this. The first one is SOGI, or sexual orientation and gender identity. You can Google it, you'll understand like what this is all about. The idea of this is great, but the implementation really disturbs some of the parents. There have been nationwide protests against this too, but at the same time, the government has pushed it and all schools have implemented. I'll just give you an example of what I saw in a video of a real parent experiencing this in somewhere in Ontario. So there is this Punjabi parent. He has two boys who are going to the school, and the school had requested the parent that for the next 2 weeks, these two boys need to wear the dress of a female just so that they can experience what it's like to be on the other side of the gender. Now, this parent, what he decided is that for these 2 weeks, he's not gonna send them to the school. And if you ask me, in my personal opinion, it is not the government's job to let the students or the children know about sexuality or gender identity. It is the parents' job. Parents have their own way of explaining. But the point is, when the government intervenes and makes little children as young as the ones that are going to sixth grade force themselves into learning gender identity and sexual orientation, there is no need for government intervention. There are enough problems in this country already. You see how the cost of living crisis is, the housing crisis, problem of shortage of childcare facilities, wage growth, the lack of technological improvements, lack of productivity, lack of innovation. Government has no problem with any of this, but gender identity and sexual orientation is a problem, and government is going to fix that. That's where the problem lies. And there is another policy that disturbs people too. This is about legalizing drugs. If you have noticed or not, Canada has legalized consumption of cannabis. The government legally distributes drugs in limited quantities so that the drug addicts don't go to extreme limits. And here is where it sounds funny to me. If there is a person who has diabetes, will you cure them by giving them more sugar? If there is a person who has malaria, would you introduce them to more mosquito bites to cure malaria? Then how can you cure drugs with more drugs? I really don't understand this. And a lot of people who have left this country have fed up with these kind of strange policies from the government, which is not really for the betterment of society. All right. Point number 5 is high taxes. Just because a province shows a higher take home doesn't really mean that everything else is affordable. You also got to keep in mind this is an average salary. It doesn't say what is the average tenure of people who get this pay. So someone who is new might be starting from a minimum wage. So I've also made some data on what it's like, or can you really survive using the minimum wage. And just by looking at this data, you must be able to understand what taxes really look like. This country also follows tax brackets. That means the higher you earn, the more you'll be taxed. And there are different ways in other countries where you can evade these taxes legally. So those kind of opportunities are very minimal in Canada. And when you think about the affordability and this level of high taxes, people feel the value of their money will go way further in a different country compared to Canada. Now, there are a few other reasons which I've heard from the people who have left Canada. The first part is the general economy. Canada is right next to US. You compare simple things like what is the take home pay in the US, what is the average rents in the US, what is the exchange rate. Everything is way better. Being a neighbor, US is casting a real large shadow on Canada. It is really hard to come up with an argument to say Canada is better than US. Off late, if you have seen the news, Canada is not in good terms with its own neighbor. If with US, It has its own challenges. You have seen the kind of comments Trump is passing on Canada. You have seen what's the relationship is like with India. And there is a lot of dependency on Chinese economy too. If you speak locally within Canada, this is a country that just doesn't like competition. For example, you take banking, there is some 4 or 5 big players. For example, there is RBC, there is TD Bank, Scotia Bank, BMO, CIBC. These control probably 80 to 90% of the market share. On top of that, you go to energy. There is Suncor Energy, there is Imperial Oil, Canadian Natural Resources dominating the market. Similarly, you have real estate where large developers in each of these provinces hold majority of the land or are responsible to develop majority. Even supermarkets, simple grocery shopping that happens within Loblaws, Sobeys, and Metro. These companies make fake competition. They say they're competing against each other, but then that's not really the case. And that's why you see that Canada is not really known for innovation. Even in terms of productivity per capita, Canada reports one of the lowest numbers in the G7. Among the immigrants, a lot of these are highly driven. They come from a country that is very competitive by nature. And when they move and see this kind of an environment where, people are extremely laid back, the companies are laid back, the economy itself is laid back, they feel like if they push in a country which encourages innovation, they have better prospects of making money and have a decent living. The other one that comes up, loneliness. Now, the people in Canada are very private. I think this privacy also goes to unreasonable extent because, like, I have come across a building where people don't know who lives right next door. I know that there are a lot of reports out there showing that Canada is a friendly country. If you think saying hi, bye, thank you, and holding the door for the next person to come by is friendliness, then this is the most friendliest country in the world. From my experience, I feel this is a country with people who are very passive aggressive. During my normal interactions, I can see there is a lot of filters when people speak. They don't go beyond certain topics and they try to be very politically correct about things. With those kind of walls that people create in their minds, it's hard to know them beyond their opinion of the weather. A lot of people say, oh, I'll get a multicultural experience in Canada. I'm going to mingle with Brazilians, I'll mingle with Chinese, I'll mingle with Japanese and whatnot. But when you actually move here, you'll get to see each one of them have their own subgroups. Let's say you work for a company that has multinationals from everywhere. Indians will form their own gang, the Russians will form their own gang, Chinese will form their own. There is absolutely no multicultural experience. All of these factors make this a very lonely place to live in. So we have heard a lot of things until now about the reasons why people are leaving Canada. I think we can put all of that into context by looking at how many people have actually left Canada in all of these years. And this is what the data looks like. So it's very obvious that the steady 6% has remained all through. People constantly leave. Now, if you look at 2016 and 2017, percentage almost doubled. From the usual 6%, it went up to 12%, reduced to 10, and then the range has been between 6 and 9%. It doesn't seem very significant to me. Like when I see these numbers, since it doesn't seem too significant, is probably why the country is not bothered. That's probably everything that I could think of in this matter. When I moved, I didn't have this kind of an information. So that's why I feel it's probably helpful to someone who is considering. So does this mean Canada is a bad place to move? That is completely arguable and probably subjective too, if you ask my opinion. And talking about the opinions of the people whom I have met as immigrants, people who like this country the most are those who find their country of origin to be unlivable. If that is your circumstance, this is a fantastic place to move to. You can start everything from scratch and still have a decent living. But if your objective is purely economic, there are far better countries you can explore and then decide which one you want to move. That brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have stayed this long, do consider subscribing, liking, and probably leaving me a comment of what you're looking forward to on the next one. I wish you good health, wealth, and happiness. This is Guru signing off for Guru Samvad. Satyam Param Dhimahi.